Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another edition of Muslims Uncensored with me, Robert Carter, and Roshan Salih. We are honoured to have a very special guest with us today who I will introduce shortly, but before we do that, I need to address a very concerning development which came to my attention last week when we had a very short break of Muslims Uncensored, something which Roshan is totally responsible for. So Roshan, could you just address this holiday scandal that Robert Carter was somehow involved in on Five Pillars? What's going on?
Well, I was getting like text messages from people. Why didn't you do Muslims Uncensored last week?
Okay.
And I didn't want to kind of, there's so many asking. There's about 6 or 7 people asking. So I thought, put it on Twitter. Robert Carter's on holiday. So as soon as I put that on Twitter, people saying, "Why is he on holiday? The Ummah is burning. Robert Carter's on holiday."
Yeah,
so
fair enough, fair enough.
What have you got to say? What have you got to say for yourself?
Well, it was hardly a holiday. I managed to scratch together a couple of days to take a pit stop
in Spain.
Break. I was not in Spain. I was at home, dealing with the
sunbathing,
dealing with the family. I'm as pasty as that wall behind you. I've not been anywhere. I've had no fun. I've been working, doing some home duties. Well, no. Not really.
Right.
I was having no fun, no pleasure.
Okay.
I was just dealing with family issues. Back to work after a couple of days. So hardly the holiday.
It was very
misleading. Basically, Roshan, you've misled the public here into thinking that I was off getting a suntan somewhere, which I'm feeding it even now. That was not the case. But don't worry, brothers and sisters.
Should I be guilt tripping him, brothers and sisters, about going on holiday while the Ummah is burning?
I'm happy to announce I am back. I know everyone was wondering, where is Robert Carter? The Five Pillars team has lost their star man. Where is he? I'm back. Don't worry, I'm in action.
I'd just like to say that I haven't been on holiday.
Okay, well, good for you. I just want to say I'm back. I'm heading up to Rochdale. Stay tuned. Watch Five Pillars coverage going forward because Robert Carter is back in action. Muslims Uncensored is back. Don't worry. Roshan can stop crying about it. Yeah. I know he missed me badly. He's got no one else. Bless him. He's a lonely old man
you don't
now.
Have to touch me. It's a bit.
We have such a good wholesome team here. We get on so well at Five Pillars. You can see from our chemistry. Let me go straight to the guest.
We don't hold hands normally, by the way. It's like we're completely straight, heterosexual.
You're acting like I touched your knees. Okay, let's end it there because this is spinning off somewhere I don't want it to go. Dark places we're going to. Let's introduce our special guest. That's why this show is going to be so good this week, inshallah. Muhammed Akunjee, welcome to the show. You are a very well-known, famous Muslim lawyer who's been active in Britain for many, many years. But where the attention is on you right now is the fact that you've stood up. You stood up, you're standing against the Labour Party as an independent candidate in a constituency run by Rushanara, Labour Muslim MP, during a time when many, many people in this country, especially Muslims, are furious at the Labour Party for their stance on Gaza, their pro-Israel stance, and the fact that they failed routinely to do the bare minimum, which is call for a ceasefire. Mohammed, how's it going? I mean, what's your intentions to run against Labour?
Well, assalamu alaikum and hola, given your Spanish trip, that's very helpful.
A lead Spanish trip. I'm being smeared. I'll need legal advice.
Well, we'll do the opposite of a discount for you. I mean, the issue in...
They're not paying me enough.
I'm sure that's the case, yeah. The issue with Rushanara particularly is that she's from the community. She was put in there 13 years ago now, and she's been absent from office for a fair bit of that. Effectively, her own constituents have been complaining that she's been failing them in terms of she's not representing their needs and their local issues. But that was a grumble that continued on for a while. What then happened with this Gaza issue was that Rushanara had come in on a ticket many years ago, back in 2009, where she spoke very passionately about the Palestinians and how she would stand with them and was standing with them. But when it came down to the crunch, where something of value could have happened, which is that a ceasefire would be voted for, she then took orders from central office, took the Labour Party line, which was to abstain. And in that moment, she betrayed the community utterly. Now, the community, for weeks before that, had been campaigning outside of her office, sending her emails. There were demonstrations there, simply asking her to answer this question of ceasefire, or at least voice their concerns. And there was silence. There were 56 other MPs who rebelled against the Labour line, and she was not one of them. And so the community feels a deep betrayal by that, and that's one of the reasons I decided to stand.
She has a massive majority. The only thing, I mean, I think we'd all agree that someone has to go up against her, but her majority is well over 20,000, I think. Is it possible for you to win?
So it's interesting with this particular borough, you know, Bethnal Green and Stepney was called Bethnal Green and Bow. This is not without precedent. So the Labour Party 20 years ago, they were pushing quite wrongly for the Gulf War, for the war in Iraq, and that was very much against the community's wishes. It was an illegal war, and the incumbent then was a Labour MP with a stonking majority, Una King. In fact, Rushanara was an understudy of Una King. And very arrogantly, Una told the community, because she voted for the war, that if they didn't like it, they could vote her out. So they did, you know, and they put in George Galloway. Now, George Galloway's up in Rochdale now, basically.
It looks like he might be
doing the same thing,
yeah. The same thing now, yes.
But for some reason, the Labour Party has not learned that lesson. They've continued under the the leadership of Keir Starmer, very much a Tony Blair type character, to back another war in the Middle East, and again on being on the wrong side of history with that, turn on the community. And what we're simply offering our community there is to say, look, they didn't learn the lesson before, and we need to teach them that lesson again.
And what are you going to do if you do win? What are you going to do? Because I think our experience, especially at, 5 Pillars and other places I've worked, is that, candidates, they say good things when they're running, they speak to everybody, but once they're in power, they're not your mates anymore. They don't speak to you. They don't actually deliver anything. I mean, some would say that George was a bad local MP in Bethnal Green and elsewhere as well. Are you going to be George Mark II, or what are you going to do when you're in power?
I don't think I could compare on any good front or bad front with George, whichever way you want to cut it. He's a great orator. There are, in terms of what he achieved in the Senate on the Iraq War was an exceptional piece of pushback. And in terms of how he behaved or worked in the Bethnal Green community area, the voters formed their view, and they voted in Rushanara. Now, since then, Rushanara's had 13 years to represent that community, our community there. There've been grumblings about the fact that she simply isn't ever at her office. She doesn't attend her office in East London, a very simple thing that an MP should do. And when it came to these important issues, it took for the community to campaign outside her office week after week and still not get an answer. Now, Rushanara, as I say, was somebody who in 2009 was promoting the value, the Palestinian cause very much strongly with it. But when it counted, when it came to a vote, she abstained, and in that moment she betrayed the community.
Well, this is something we've seen massive protests about, including in Rushanara Ali's constituency. I attended one of these protests outside the headquarters there, and it included many Muslims, local constituents as well, and they were all saying the same thing, that they've loyally backed Labour for many, many years. They feel bitterly betrayed. They're angry. They feel like that the party doesn't represent them at all, not just on this issue, but in general now. And they want to politically punish Labour. That's the bottom line here. They want to politically punish Labour. So I guess you're going to
be independent, aren't you?
So right. This is the point. Now, Rushanara is following orders. The orders from head office were to not back the ceasefire, and she abstained. She followed those orders. 56 other MPs didn't, and we respect them for the fact that they broke rank. And unfortunately for the community, she wasn't one of them. But the problem that we have is actually a fundamental issue, where our MPs are meant to represent their constituents. But when you're dealing with a political party, they're not representing their constituents. They're representing the views of central office. Yeah. So unfortunately, when we have a lot of our MPs who are the great and the good amongst our community, and Rushanara has many great things about her. She was a highly educated individual from a background. She should have been one of our daughters that represents us with strength, But eventually the machine or the party machine will turn you into a puppet in many cases. And unfortunately, she was that puppet.
I think she's just been offered, when Labour come into power, I think she's been offered a job in the cabinet or something. And she's figured that she has such a big majority that she can ride it out. I think that's her thinking, is that?
That is the thinking of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
There's a couple of calculations that appear to be happening there. One is that they take the voters for granted.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't do, given their experience with Una King and George Galloway before. But they have been taking the voters for granted.
That's why Rochdale is important, Robert.
Absolutely. We will be discussing Rochdale because that could be the first opportunity for an area with a strong Muslim base to throw a spanner in the works and to basically prove that Labour can be beaten in certain key areas and constituencies. But just before we do, I want to get your opinion on the key vote that's happening as of today, the day of this recording, in Parliament today. There's another ceasefire motion that's been put forward by the SNP in Scotland, and it looks like Labour have actually decided, okay, we're going to back this motion, but there's been some issue. There's an amendment they're putting forward. There was some issue, a big debate over the wording involved, and again, as you would expect, Labour are not happy with wording that's too harsh on Israel, I guess you could say. They've changed a few words. The word lasting ceasefire has been used in the Labour Party's amendment as opposed to a full immediate ceasefire. But it does look like they're going to back the motion. What's your opinion on it, Mohammed?
So the SNP, and it's interesting because we have the International Court of Justice, which has ruled on the fact that the behaviour of Israel is at the foothills of being a genocide. Now, we in the UK are signatories to the Genocide Convention, and that means we're under a duty to put a stop to any genocide. We haven't done that as a political class. We've done actually the opposite. We're continuing to assist them militarily. So it's interesting that no British party, be it the Liberal Democrats, the Tories or Labour, have tabled any motion for ceasefire. It's taken a Scottish party to come and prick our conscience on that and table it. So that's the first thing, is why is our political class in England so completely against actually giving life to a world court ruling? And on top of that, arguably, standing against British criminal law when it comes to genocide as well. So that's a very disturbing element. But the wording on this is crucial. The SNP have been very clear that they want an immediate ceasefire, which is what 75% of the British public want, that they want to codify the behaviour of Israel militarily as collective punishment, and also they've included the death toll of Palestinians as being around 28,000. Labour's completely against this. The amendment is on the basis of a lasting ceasefire, which doesn't mean an immediate ceasefire. They don't want the wording of collective punishment in there, and they don't want the figures to be recorded in that way. Now, effectively, from my point of view, Keir Starmer, David Lammy and others have come up with wording in terms of on the media that has been arguably pro-ceasefire. But when it comes to the crunch, effectively what they're doing is a bait and switch. They're operating like dodgy
dealers.
Well, not just it's what you'd expect from a double glazing salesperson. They'll show you the actual window and say it's guaranteed, but the small print basically completely undermines whatever they're saying.
Just playing a political game, and they're taking us for fools, like we're complete idiots, and it's too little, too late. Yeah. Even if they give us everything we want, it's too little, too late. I mean, Labour have missed the boat now, and literally, I consider them a cancer that has to be removed from the body politic, and especially from Muslim communities. Like, we don't have any, influence over non-Muslims, but we do over Muslims, right? Muslims literally, I think the Labour Muslim network should disband. That's how I'm militant against it. I think no one should be voting for Labour, no one should be a councillor, no one should be an MP, no one should be trying to influence from inside. Literally, it's over. We need to literally expunge this cancer from our body,
Don't invite them to mosques either.
They should not be invited to mosques, literally, nothing.
Well, they've been pushed into this position. They haven't come, Labour hasn't come to say we want to vote for a ceasefire. The SNP have literally dragged them kicking and screaming to this point.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's there's no intention for a ceasefire.
I think Muslim criticism and pressure, I think, has also pushed them to a degree as well. I think they are feeling the heat. They appear to be in panic mode as to how the Muslim reaction has been, the backlash. Well, but they don't want to do it, as you say. They're just kind of forced to a little bit.
Looking at the intention is one thing. Yeah, then the question becomes, well, what's the difference between wanting a ceasefire and not wanting a ceasefire when it comes to 28,000 lives? Is that the critical point? Or is it 15,000 lives? Or is it 40,000 that's too much, women and children dead? What is the actual criteria for it?
Yeah.
It isn't sincere. And beyond that, when we look at, well, what are we going to do about it? Why are they feeling the heat? It wasn't just because we're protesting. We've been protesting for months. We've had 1 million people protesting, 2 million people in aggregate, same as with the Iraq war. But what's happened now is that the electorate has got sophisticated. They're getting organised, and they're standing independent candidates who are outside of the political system to challenge in key places, and actually where they have stonking majorities.
Yes.
And they see that there's a risk that they may lose their stonking majority seats.
And they really don't like this Muslim vote thing happening. I mean, there's an organisation behind this. I saw a GB News rant earlier today about it. They really don't like the fact that Muslims are organising and trying to basically militate for their rights in a coordinated way. You know, they're presenting it as something sinister. Everyone else does it. The Jewish community's done it. The Hindus do it, and everyone else does it. But we can't do it. When we do it, it's like we want to go on jihad or something.
If anyone actually engages in politics here that they don't like, they call it like a show of strength. Like, oh my goodness.
Everyone is encouraged to be more political in this country. Apart from Muslims, we're encouraged to be less political.
To be deployed.
The political parties have adopted a definition of what is anti-Semitism through lobbying. They have, however, been very, very strong in their rejection of what Islamophobia is. A definition of that. That's
yes.
So when you exclude a political class, when you deny their suffering, when you deny the racism, when you deny the fact that they've got a much smaller chance of getting jobs for their children or getting into universities, when you deny them access to the same level playing field as everyone else, then you must expect that they will eventually organise and demand that their rights are heard and aired on the political stage. And if the doors close to them by the main political parties, they will form their own.
Yeah,
that will always.
We have no political home.
No, absolutely not. Let's go to Rochdale now, because it is very, very important what's happening up there. It's of interest to all of us. George Galloway is currently being pegged as the favourite to win. He's obviously standing for his political party there against Labour. He's taken a very outspoken Palestine position. He's using Gaza to really make the most of it for his campaign, and he's appealing to the strong Muslims that live, the strong Muslim community that lives there, especially. But there are also other candidates to update you about. Azhar Ali, who we confronted on Five Pillars a few days after we attempted to get an answer from him. He ignored us completely. He ended up, subhanAllah, he got in trouble for comments he made about the situation in Gaza anyway, and now
he said Israel let them do it. But I must admit, I mean, in the days after October the 7th, lots of Muslims were saying that to me, that, oh, this couldn't have happened, Israel must have let them do it. I mean, I think that's BS personally, because I think it's like we have this tendency as Muslims to give America and Israel too much agency. In fact, we give them divine powers at times, you know, like they are all powerful. No, Israel was caught with its pants down that day. That's basically what happened. So it's strange, because obviously this Azhar Ali guy is an establishment figure. You know, he's a new Labour figure. He was advisor to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown at the height of the Iraq War. So I wouldn't have expected him to come out with that kind of statement, which is a wacky statement.
He got caught, basically. He didn't make it.
I think he was trying to appeal to an audience or something like that.
Maybe.
He probably doesn't believe it himself.
So I don't even understand how he's appealing to that audience. Basically, if you think about his statement, it's basically saying that Hamas and the Israeli state
collaborated to do,
Like, nobody's going to like that statement.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he's
out.
He's finished force. Labour in the area are also basically out.
Well, he's still on the list. He's
on the list.
And he's
he
not
doesn't
campaigning.
represent Labour. He's not campaigning. So, you know, he's done, I think.
I hope so. If he wins, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, he's basically in that situation. There's a hustings that I'll be attending in about a day or so. I guess the other candidate, there is the Conservative candidate still. There's a Liberal Democrats. I think...
I hear the Tories aren't really campaigning. I hear it's between Danchuk, Reform UK and Galloway.
So Reform UK are the other major headline grabber, if you like. We'll have to wait and see how well they do. But it's very much being pegged as a Reform UK versus Galloway pitch battle.
Right.
And obviously Reform UK are trying to aim to the white working class vote in the area.
Anti-grooming votes.
Maybe.
Yes.
But then Galloway, of course, is being pegged as the one doing the opposite, appealing to the Muslim constituency there and trying to galvanise that to win.
What's a good outcome for us in Rochdale, do you reckon?
I mean, I would say that Galloway coming into Parliament as effectively an independent under his party would be very, very helpful. He's been a very strong voice for the Palestinians for half a century, literally. So I wouldn't say that he was using the Palestinian or Gaza issue at all for anything. He is the embodiment of Palestinian advocacy.
Yeah, he's been consistent on this issue for many years. Yeah.
So given that's it's appropriate even that the flashpoint of World War III potentially in the world is around Jerusalem at this moment in time. We need a very strong voice to try and help focus a light on the moral compass of it all, and B, to try and avoid escalation that could quite conceivably lead to a world conflict.
I just think we have to send a very strong message in Rochdale, because if Galloway doesn't win and somehow either the guy who's not campaigning, Azhar Ali or Danchik wins, it would be really embarrassing. And it would actually be an indictment of the Muslim community, I think. So I think Galloway has to win, and has to win big. And we have to send a clear message out that we are here to be taken seriously. We can act as a lobby, and that will send out a very clear message to the electorate and to the other political parties ahead of the general election later on this year. But you're going. Sorry, yeah, come in, Mohammed.
If Azhar Ali does win on the off chance,
Man,
then it does send a message to everybody that you don't have to be the sharpest knife in the kitchen to actually win. So it gives hope to the rest of us, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. What should we do if Azhar Ali wins? I mean, it's haram to bet, but what should we do if Azhar Ali wins? You'll have to eat your kaftan or something. I'll eat your kebab. But you're going to the hustings in Rochdale on Thursday, and maybe you might stick around the next day if you don't want to go on holiday again. And you're going to come out with a report, inshallah, on YouTube maybe Saturday.
Rochdale is a holiday hotspot, so I'll be tempted there, but don't worry, I will be getting
it rain up north. Brothers and sisters, I know that you watch us around the country. Why does it rain every time we go up north? I mean, literally, it's the most miserable, rainy place in the whole world.
Your personality brings the clouds with you, I guess. I mean, wherever I go, it's sunny.
Should we just insult northerners, soft southerners?
You should run as a candidate up there. You do very, very well, I can tell.
I did want to actually run for Parliament. You know,
Rochdale.
I was going to run.
Okay.
But I'm going to be ultra honest with my. I'm saying I'm not going to turn up to work. I'm just going to take the perks. I'm going to get on that gravy train, and I'm not going to do any work for you. I don't care about you, but vote for me anyway.
So you're a Labour candidate.
Yeah, you should have stood for Labour then. Well,
what's next, Robert? Let's move on.
So this is a good one for you to deal with.
All right.
Dilly and the Nazis, this is titled, and it follows criticism of a recent interview on his latest Blood Brothers podcast edition 122, where he interviewed a guy called Mark Collett. To be honest with you, I didn't actually know who Mark was prior to the interview. You probably know him better than I do.
Yes.
But he's been described as a neo-Nazi, basically.
Would you regard the 312,000, according to the census 2021, 312,000 English, Northern Irish, Welsh and Scottish Muslims as your people?
That's difficult. I think white Muslims are people. In an ideal world, I don't want white English men or women converting to Islam. I'll be honest. But I understand why it's happening.
And Dilly was condemned by some for platforming a neo-Nazi, basically. Do you want to respond to that, Roshan?
Yeah, I mean, brothers and sisters, you have to leave comments in the comment section about this and tell us what you think. Because obviously we've conducted, or Blood Brothers, obviously that's part of 5 Pillars, has conducted several interviews with the far right over the last few months. Started off with Nick Griffin, we went on to Jim Dowson in Northern Ireland, and we have recently done Mark Collett. So all these figures associated with the far right, all these figures in the past anyway, very, very severe anti-Islam rhetoric. Some would even say have kind of mobilized street thugs against Muslims. So they've kind of left that behind, that part, but they're still very controversial figures. So we've done these interviews. I would say that the majority of Muslims watching these interviews have been fine with them and are interested to hear these people speak, and especially because they've agreed to our red lines, which are, they adhere to Islamic red lines. They don't insult Islam. They have given us editorial control over the output to delete stuff or not to delete stuff. And they have also, and we're not in open war with these people now. They're not Tommy Robinson. They're not Paul Golding. They're not Zionists. So we would never interview a Zionist. We would never interview Tommy Robinson and Paul Golding because literally we're in conflict with these people now. Whereas people like Nick Griffin, we're not allies with them, or we're not endorsing them. We're just having an interesting conversation with them about stuff that happened in the past and even their views now. We might find some common ground. We'll disagree on many things as well. So I think basically that we have had a lot of criticism. Like a minority of our friends and supporters are furious at Dilly and myself for letting these interviews go ahead because they say these guys, they're neo-Nazis, they hate Muslims, they're anti-Semitic as well, and etc., etc. My position is that we should be able to interview anybody, literally anybody, as long as they adhere to Islamic red lines and as long as we're not in open conflict with them now. And yeah, it's boring interviewing Muslims all the time and having an echo chamber. And of course, we're interviewing Muslims 99% of the time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's really boring. You bored the pants off me today. No, but you know, it's like, but it is. You know, it's nice to have a change every now and again and interview somebody, have a discussion, even a disagreement with somebody, and that's what we're going to continue doing. But yeah. We're not going to.
We're journalists at the end of the day. You know,
Yeah.
we're not platforming.
What's your problem, man? Let's interview people who disagree with it. It's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I don't know if you have any comment on this.
No, I'm more of a free speech absolutist. To be
Okay.
honest, I believe in debate and discussion. I believe that any journalist should be asking everyone what their views are. There are ways and means to do that. And in terms of, let's say, having somebody with a very colourful background like Collins, it is important to interview him, but it's also important to challenge his views, particularly where
absolutely.
he has said that he's changed his views, to press him on, whether that's cogent or not, in terms of why he changed, how he changed, and why he hasn't, developed the parameters of his neo-Nazism, whatever, further or given it up. So that I think any criticism would only be legitimate if somebody watched the entire interview, and having watched it, then they can form some sort of criticism around that.
Yeah.
I will say that I did see the criticism around some of Dilly's comments. I think that the exchanges between Dilly and others didn't help calm the situation. The easiest thing for him.
You mean on Twitter?
On Twitter.
Okay.
Just really was a bit more personal than is necessary.
Well, we had this Matt Cannard guy, who I don't know who he is, but apparently he's quite big on the left. And he got our backs up because immediately he was saying he was demanding that we delete these videos. I mean, who the hell is he to demand anything off a Muslim platform? He's non-Muslim. I've never heard of the guy. He can't demand anything from us. But he says, if you don't delete it, you're Nazi sympathizers. So immediately once he says that, it gets our backs up, and maybe we say things that we shouldn't have said back. But he started it.
All right, so that
we finished it.
that sort of commentary is a bit like chain fear in ISIS territory.
Yeah.
If you don't declare something about someone, then you're with them.
Yeah.
So that's I always found that to be a problematic position to take. But the simple thing to say is, have you watched the documentary? If not, where's your comments' legitimacy?
I think, do you know what? It's good to remind ourselves that we are Muslims at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We're not left or right, like in terms of how the West politically understands how politics works. We're Muslim. We're in the middle path. We do our own thing. So, okay, we work with the left on some issues. We may have solidarity with the right on some issues, like social issues. We're conservative socially, right? But like you say, we shouldn't be dictated to about what we can and can't say. Like the left is very big on cancel culture right now. Islam isn't about cancel culture. In fact, the Prophet and the Sahaba, peace be upon them all, during their time, they would have interacted with the enemies of Islam and did dawah, right? So, and I have to say,
We did do dawah on all of those guests, by the way.
Yeah, so there you go. And I mean, very quickly, I interviewed a guy in Cornwall last year. It was he's a convert to Islam, British convert to Islam. And he told me in the interview, I was astonished. He literally said as a teenager, as a young guy, he basically believed in fascism. He thought it was like a good ideology, which made sense. He was basically radicalized by it to a point where he basically like this Mark guy, like a neo-Nazi, I guess. But alhamdulillah, he found Islam, and now he's happy. He's not hateful at all. He takes good care of his mum. He's a lovely, lovely character who does a lot of good work in his local community now under the leadership of Islam. And he loves Islam and he loves life, and he's a good, wholesome person now. And if no Muslim interacted with him because he's a fascist, then God knows where he'd be now. So alhamdulillah, Islam did interact with him, and it brought him to the path. He was lucky to have found Islam in that sense. So
my
this
issue with all
idea
of
that we
this-
just don't talk to anyone we don't like is...
The issues, and have you mentioned before that a lot of these people were involved in violence previously.
Yeah, that's
And
the issue, isn't it?
that is the issue, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of very strong feelings about that because people were victims of that. But in terms of this scenario, it is better to speak and air things out, because if you don't, then it often does lead to violence. And so if we don't, if we create these echo chambers and we just completely don't know the parameters of the other side, then we risk that, and that's why I'm always in favour of speech.
Yeah.
In order to neutralise things or get a better understanding of things, than being silent about matters and letting them fester.
It is the kind of I would say over 45s, that kind of older generation that is really vexed by what we've done. Younger activists don't remember these guys really, and are more conducive to kind of things like open speech, like free speech. But the only thing, I mean, I'll probably get criticised for saying this, but in terms of the feedback that we're getting, honestly, Robert, I don't know whether this is something that you do as well in Dili, but speaking for myself, I don't really care what non-Muslims have to say, to be honest, because we're a Muslim platform and our constitution is the Quran and Sunnah. So yeah, sometimes non-Muslims can say interesting things. Sometimes they can be right, and I don't dismiss everything, but it's not my primary focus. And even secular Muslims, like non-practicing secular Muslims with a secular, like coconut mindset, I don't even care what they have to say, to be honest. But when practicing Muslims criticize 5 pillars out, people that are dedicated to our deen, then I listen, I sit up and listen, and then I will change my mind if the criticism is too vociferous. Yeah.
I think it's a fair point. I mean, at the end of the day, we are answerable to our supporters. You know, they're the ones who actually care and will come to our aid if we need it. So
no non-Muslim lefty has ever funded 5 pillars. You know,
there you go.
They don't give the membership £5 a month every month, and even secular Muslims don't do that. It's practicing Muslims that do that.
I'm sure he didn't like us even before this happened. He just saw an
I
opportunity.
don't know who he is. Declassified UK. I've seen some of the work they do. It's actually quite good.
It is good.
They do good research.
Maybe you should ask them to come on the show and have a discussion about that.
Yeah, give him a slap. Sorry to that.
Let's
shut up, lefty.
Let's move on quickly before it escalates. I'll put this on Twitter, by the way.
I bet you supposed Jeremy Corbyn. Every episode I have to get Jeremy Corbyn in. Sorry, that's it.
So, Robin, do you have some chamomile tea for Roshan?
I know, we should drug him up.
You know, I gave a speech in Leicester the other day, and I mentioned Jeremy Corbyn. I just, every single time, even our viewers, they hate me mentioning Jeremy Corbyn because Muslims drink this Jeremy Corbyn Kool-Aid. So I'm annoying my own viewers here.
How dare you criticize Corbyn, the leader of the movement? Let's move on to this guy, because I must say he's someone who's received a lot of praise for the right reasons.
Oh, wow. Yes.
TV star Dr. Asif Munaf, who was a contestant on the major, I think it's the BBC show, The Apprentice.
Yeah.
He appeared on there last year. They aired it this year, but because of anti-Zionist comments that he made on X, staunchly supporting the Palestinian cause as well, he has basically been removed from the show. They've taken bits out and removed him. They've cancelled him. The BBC has cancelled him basically. But he, despite the media onslaught that he's faced, he's stood his ground and he's gone, I don't care. I'm pro-Palestine. I'm anti-Zionist. I hate this ideology, political ideology, which is racist. I have no issue with Judaism, but I'm going to stand my ground. I'm not going to silence myself because of, I don't know, the BBC or what mainstream media has to say. I'll play out a little snippet now of the doctor who spoke to 5 Pillars just a couple of days earlier.
They want censorship. They want you to abide by their broad brush definition or misdefinition, you could say, of anti-Semitism, and just, be hush. But no, you have to speak up. This is our prerogative as Muslims, and it's our prerogative as decent human beings. Do not let a small group of people who wish to let genocide go unabated, let genocide go unquestioned, don't let them prosper by being silent. So speak up. Yes, in the end, it will all end well, inshallah, but it'll be rocky, but you've got nothing to be ashamed of. You are not xenophobic, racist, anti-Semitic. You are just anti-genocide. And any good employer, any reasonable employer, any reasonable institution, like we saw with Dr. David Miller at Bristol University, they will see through the facade. they will see through the Zionist PR machine, which is trying to put everyone who is anti-Israel into the anti-Semitic camp.
So obviously that was just a piece of it. I believe he's appearing on Blood Brothers soon.
Very
so
soon.
Again, there'll be plenty more from the Doctor, which you can watch on 5 Pillars. But yeah, obviously this guy has just stood up for Zionism, and he said things like the outcome of the David Miller case with Bristol University means that we are free to condemn Zionism, this ideology in this country. Muhammad, perhaps you could elaborate on this more so.
Yeah, so the David Miller case, the court there, I believe the decision is being appealed, but the court there stated quite clearly that anti-Zionism is a political philosophy that is also protected. So Zionism is a political philosophy and anti-Zionism is a political philosophy. The issue of the conflation between Zionism or anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is one that was artificially created by IHRA definition. And the overuse of this now has meant that where certain organizations or fringe organizations their entire purpose is to go around tarring people and with the phrase anti-Semite, even though they're conflating with Zionism, I think that era is now coming to a close, especially after this whole debacle with the last 4 months of the Palestine conflict. We've just seen, we've seen the ICJ being tarred as anti-Semitic, even though one of the judges there was appointed by Israel themselves.
South Africa as well, they were all smeared as anti-Semites for
Gary Lineker, for example. So I mean, if you're going to be in the same,
he's Jewish as well. He is Jewish.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah, he is.
Well, if you're going to be tarred by these people in the company of the ICJ, the entire nation of South Africa, which is who's come out of apartheid, and with Gary Lineker, you're in good company.
Yes, absolutely. I must say that I'll be interested to see what the Doctor has to say. He seems like a stand-up guy, and yeah, big up to him. I mean,
he's a hero, isn't he?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
literally, it's so refreshing to see a prominent Muslim when they're cancelled by the mainstream. Often what they do is they go into their shell. They're obviously quite fearful of losing their job and their, I don't know, their notoriety or whatever, and they get intimidated. Whereas this guy's gone the opposite way, and he's literally come out with these tweets, I fear Allah alone, I don't fear Zionists, quoting the Quran. Literally, he has doubled down on his Islam, and he's willing to risk everything, but he will not compromise on his faith, his fundamentals, his belief in Allah, and his political beliefs as well. And he's doubled down on his criticism of Israel. I've seen his tweets. I've not seen one anti-Semitic comment in there whatsoever. Yet his name has been dragged through the mud on the mainstream media, including the BBC, Daily Mail, etc. And the campaign against anti-Semitism that that organisation has complained, I think, to the BBC against him. I think maybe the Board of Deputies has as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's been complaints made to the governing board of medicine. So they're trying to
General Medical Council. Yes,
absolutely. So they're actually
trying to get him sacked.
Trying to get him sacked. They're trying to get him cancelled in every way, shape, and form. They're character assassinating him in the media. But I think this is a strong reminder that criticizing Zionism, this ideology, is so important that we keep doing it, because we've already seen some groups which are pro-Palestine actually getting scared and they're backing down. They're saying, we don't want to talk about Zionism. We want to criticize Israel. We want to wave the Palestinian flag, but we don't want to talk about Zionism.
No.
Let's put that down there because that's too controversial now. No, we have to stand by this issue and say we will talk about it. This ideology is killing our people in Gaza right now. It's the whole point of what's going on there is because of this evil ideology, this political ideology, which is behind the death, the murder, the destruction, the land theft that's going on there. We have to talk about it, and we can't be scared to do so.
I'd encourage you, brothers and sisters, to follow this guy on social media. I think he's quite big on TikTok and Twitter.
Yes,
and
Instagram as well.
Doctor, you're touching me again there, Robert. But
yes, I'm going to do more of that.
Okay, should we do the? You going to take your hand away?
No, absolutely not. No, I'm very happy.
Should we play some competitive music?
I've found what makes you uncomfortable, so I'm going to keep doing.
Yeah, it does actually. You've got a bit of sweaty hands there as well. It's kind of personal hygiene.
Insult me as much as you want, Roshan. It's not going to deter me. Okay. It's halal. It's halal. We're two brothers at the end of the day. Okay, so let's end.
I'm actually blushing now. You've actually found my weak point, which is
there might be another scandal.
Homoeroticism is my weak point. Yeah.
5 minutes going to be known for that now. Okay, so let's deal with whatever this is next week. But
The program, by the way, I can see the memes already going around.
it's going to viral. Dilly's going to have to explain this to his followers. Let's end the show on a positive.
I was going to say, brothers and sisters, follow him on social media. He's big on Twitter and TikTok. Dr. Asif Munaf. I think people like this who literally get cancelled and show their faith in Allah, we need to support these people. So support him.
So let's end the show on a funny note, which we're not a very funny show. So let's end it on a good one if we can. There was a footage that went viral about a couple of days ago of a pro-Palestine demonstration in Japan. And what happened was a random woman who's clearly not Japanese saw this protest. Perhaps she was a holidaymaker, I don't know. And she got furious, absolute furious. And she's been described as the Zionist Karen. And she literally goes on this crazy tirade, screaming at these poor Japanese people's face. But they remain undeterred. They keep chanting Free Palestine. I'm going to play out a clip now and we'll react to it. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see it, Mohammed, from where you're sitting. But listen out because it's hilarious. So that's it. It's basically a woman who is screaming at these people, and it's not putting them off at all. And people were finding it so hilarious. I have to say, any time I see a supporter of Israel getting so angry just by the Palestinian flag, just by seeing the Palestinian flag, I find it so enjoyable to watch. I really enjoyed watching this woman get angry. It's not clear where she's from or who she is, but just the fact she got so bitterly annoyed by Palestine, by people saying Free Palestine, Israel is a terrorist state. It was enjoyable. It made my day. I was so happy.
They love playing the victim, don't they? All these genocide supporters and enablers. They're still trying to portray themselves as the victims here.
Well, I think that's the most important thing that's come out of this conflict is that Israel cannot anymore claim to be the victim. It is the perpetrator of something that is, at the very least, a war crime or a series of war crimes, soon to be judged to be likely to be a genocide. There's no way the perpetrator of a genocide or war crimes can ever claim victimhood after this. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, I mean, also when we get David, what's his name, Douglas Murray, when we get him cancelled in London, and we're going to try and get him cancelled in Toronto as well. Whenever we do that, they start crying. These Zionists, they start crying like babies, don't they? And I mean, they've literally tried to get us cancelled for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally what they do. Like, call up venues. Don't let him speak at that venue. And whenever we go on the mainstream media, they're complaining to the BBC, and we never get invites to the mainstream media anymore. But as soon as one of theirs, they can dish it out, but they can't take it, can they?
Absolutely. They're the biggest snowflakes.
Biggest crybabies.
And if you can have Colette and interview him, why not get Douglas Murray on and interview him and then see what he has to say?
We'd love to take him on, wouldn't we, face to face? But
he would never agree.
He's a bit.
What do you reckon, brothers and sisters? Douglas Murray and Blood Brothers?
He wouldn't come on.
We are kind of in open conflict with these people.
Well, but you're holding hands now, so you've widened the network.
I will wash my hands after this. Is all right, get a good scrub.
He's got his own platform on Talk TV. He likes to outnumber his pro-Palestine guests and screams at them a bit like this Zionist Karen does at protests. But I think they've lost the public argument, haven't they? I mean, most people around the world support the Palestinians.
Did you see that guy who said he's going to put me on a list yesterday?
Go on, tell us that story.
Didn't you?
I saw the tweets.
On Twitter, some Zionist guy said...
His name's Douche.
Douchebag, yeah. Well, he said to me, basically, he said, when the war is over, we're going to put you on a list. What does that mean? That's a threat, right? You're a lawyer. That's pretty...
Yeah, there you go. Let's respond to that.
Isn't that a threat? It's not a shopping list, is it? It's like
I
a.
don't know. Maybe it's a
hit list.
20% discount at Asda. Who knows?
Well, I was
Did you ask
thinking.
him? Did you ask him to clarify?
Interpretation.
Well, I was wondering whether to laugh or to take it seriously, but then I thought, actually, it's a threat, right? You can't go. If I did that to somebody, I'd be cancelled straight away, you know.
You'd be in Guantanamo.
But I know who he is, and I know his profile, and he's a real person who was on the BBC a few weeks ago claiming anti-Semitic abuse.
Okay.
So I don't know whether I should follow it through or not, or should just forget about it, or.
I'm not the lawyer, so
Putting somebody on a list is,
When we win the war, we're going to put you on a list.
yeah, but why? Well, I mean,
That's
why,
the context, the war.
why is he not very good at multitasking? Yeah, can't do the list.
Yeah.
If he's not going to take it seriously, I can't, can I? I mean, I was like up for a fight, and now he's like completely burst my bubble. Like no one does that. You know, I've got loads of lawyer friends, and I go to them with like lawsuits. And they just laugh at me and like, you know, and then they go off with somebody else and get them £1 million.
yeah, you're an undefendable character, Roshan. I don't blame anyone for not wanting to put their neck on the line for you. But there we go. Muhammed, you've been a very good sport putting up with us for the hour or so that you've been on the show. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you on, and perhaps we'll have you on again before you are victorious in your bid to oust Rushanara Ali from her constituency.
And then it drops as like a hot dinner.
Yeah, if you
never
don't
speaks
drop
to
us
us
in the
again.
meantime, yeah, like so many others have.
Why are you so bitter when it hasn't even happened yet? Like, why?
Bitter and twisted.
You are a twisted old man who doesn't like to be touched. But thank you very much, everyone. That is it from us on Muslims Uncensored. Until next week.
Where are you going on holiday next, Robert? Hawaii?
Rochdale, yeah, the sunny destination town of Rochdale. I'll be there in a few hours. So stay tuned, guys, and watch our coverage from there in the next few days. But thank you very much. Leave your comments in the comment section below. And please like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel immensely. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum for now.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters.